11:30 in the evening across India. I am Tanvi Taneja. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We bring you the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from Washington, D.C. is my colleague Kate Fisher. Hi, Kate.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. As Taiwan prepares to head to the polls, Washington warns Beijing against election interference. And Donald Trump's two closest rivals for the Republican presidential nomination fight it out on the debate stage for the last time before voting begins to choose the GOP nominee. Back now to Tanvi in New Delhi with the rest of the headlines.
Israel denies accusations made by South Africa in the International Court of Justice. Accuses Pretoria of playing advocate of the devil for Hamas. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel working with the region, creating path to Palestinian state is the best way to isolate Iran. US urges China to not interfere in Taiwan elections. Washington to send delegation to Taipei after elections on 13th of January. And state of emergency declared for 14 days after rioting and looting killed 16 in Papua New Guinea. Authorities blame opportunists for the trouble.
There were recommendations for outside forces to come in or for us to seek help elsewhere.
Israelis on Thursday denied accusations made by South Africa in the International Court of Justice. In hearings at The Hague, also known as the World Court, South Africa demanded an emergency suspension of Israel's aerial and ground offensive in the Palestinian enclave. Israel has rejected these accusations as baseless and accused Pretoria of playing advocate of the devil for Hamas, the Palestinian Islamist terror group. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Israel is working with the region and creating a path to a Palestinian state, and that is the best way to isolate Iran. Blinken was speaking before boarding a plane leaving Cairo, where he met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The top US diplomat added that Washington is focused on making sure that the West Bank does not explode. Shuttling between Israel and the Arab states, Blinken has been pushing for the way forward in the conflict, even as it threatens to spread further to Lebanon, Iraq, and Red Sea shipping lanes. Meanwhile, US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein has said that he was hopeful diplomacy could calm tensions on the disputed border between Lebanon and Israel, where the Israeli military and armed group Hezbollah have been exchanging fire for 3 months.
If you pursue the first path, if you build that integration, if you bring Israel in, if you make the necessary commitments to security, and you move down the path to a Palestinian state, that's the single best way to isolate, to marginalize Iran and the proxies that are making so much trouble for us and for pretty much everyone else in the region.
Underneath the city of Khan Yunis, Israel Defense Forces, meanwhile, exposed an underground tunnel confirmed to have held Israeli hostages. The IDF said that the tunnel was connected to an extensive network beneath the civilian area. Millions of shekels are estimated to have been invested in excavating the tunnel and equipping it with air ventilation systems, electrical supply, and plumbing. Next, on to Taiwan. Come Saturday, Taiwan will hold a closely watched presidential and parliamentary election. The United States, in a clear signal to China, has said that it opposes any outside interference or influence in the island nation's governance. According to a report, a senior official in the Joe Biden administration said that Washington's policy toward Taiwan will remain unchanged. despite the poll outcome. This comes after Beijing slammed Washington over a meeting between the US House Speaker and Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the US. My colleague Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C. She gives us more on this and other stories making it to the headlines around the world. Kate, Taiwan elections are coming at a very delicate time for US-China relations.
Thanks, Tanvi. Yes, they certainly are. In a signal to China, the US has said that it opposes any outside interference in Taiwan's January the 13th presidential elections. According to reports, a senior official in the Joe Biden administration said that Washington's policy toward Taiwan will remain unchanged, whatever the outcome of the poll. Now, this comes after Beijing slammed Washington over a meeting between the US House Speaker and Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the US. And Taiwan has time and again accused China of meddling in its elections. China, of course, claims sovereignty over the islands. Meanwhile, the White House plans to send an unofficial delegation to Taiwan following the self-ruled island's presidential and parliamentary elections. But the participants of the delegation and the timing of their trip are not yet finalised, and Taiwan's voters head to the polls on Saturday. The latest now on the US presidential election. And in the Republican presidential debate, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former US Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, have been trading barbs as they try to emerge as the leading alternative to former President Donald Trump. DeSantis and Haley accused each other of lying about their records, and they were making their case before Republican voters in the state of Iowa, who will choose their preferred nominee on Monday. On Wednesday, Donald Trump, the leading candidate for the Republican presidential nomination, stated that the US commitment to NATO during his potential second term would depend on how they treat the country. Mr. Trump criticised European nations for not adequately funding NATO, emphasising a strategy of peace through strength. According to recent polls, Mr. Trump maintains a substantial lead in the race for the party's nomination to run against President Joe Biden in the 5th of November election. US President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is due in a Los Angeles federal court, where he's expected to plead not guilty to tax charges stemming from business dealings that have also prompted an impeachment probe of his father. Hunter Biden stands criminally accused of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019, while spending millions of dollars on drugs, escorts, exotic cars and other high-ticket items. He faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted. His lawyer said he's paid back his taxes and he is being persecuted because of his famous last name. Well, Hunter Biden, who's publicly discussed his substance abuse, has never held a position in the White House or his father's campaign. Turkey, Romania and Bulgaria signed an agreement on Thursday on a joint plan to clear mines floating in the Black Sea as a result of the war in Ukraine, following months of talks between the NATO allies. Turkish Defence Minister Yasar Gula, his Romanian counterpart and Bulgaria's Deputy Defence Minister signed a memorandum of understanding in Istanbul to form a trilateral initiative to clear the explosives. Sea mines have posed a threat to Ukraine's export routes via the Black Sea since Russia's invasion in February 2022, and several commercial ships have been hit, including a bulk carrier heading to the River Danube port to load grain in December. Well, naval commanders of the three countries will form a committee to run the operation that might include other Black Sea states after the war in Ukraine ends. Iran's intelligence ministry on Thursday identified as a top suspect described as a ringleader and bomb maker in the twin suicide bombings last week, claimed by the Islamic State group, as the death toll from the attack rose to at least 94. The January 3rd attack, in which 2 suicide bombers targeted a commemoration for an Iranian general slain in a 2020 US drone strike in Iraq, was the deadliest in Iran in decades, as the wider Middle East remains on edge. One bomber first detonated his explosives at the ceremony in Kerman, about 820 kilometers southeast of the capital, Tehran, and then another attacked 20 minutes later as emergency workers and other people tried to help the wounded from the first explosion. The official IRNA news agency carried a statement by the intelligence ministry saying that the main suspect who planned the bombing was a Tajik national known by his alias Abdullah Tajiki. Meanwhile, an oil tanker involved in a dispute between the US and Iran has been boarded by armed individuals east of Oman and appeared to be changing course towards Iranian waters, according to a British maritime security firm and the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Authority. The security firm, Ambre, said that the Marshall Islands flagged tanker's tracking system was turned off as it headed in the direction of the Iranian port Bandar Ejask at the time that it made the report. The ship, which loaded in the Iraqi port of Basra, was heading to western Turkey, according to tracking data. The US has said that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has been trying to send Iranian oil to China in violation of US sanctions. The armed intruders were reported to be wearing military-style black uniforms and black masks. The Kremlin has accused the US of trying to pressure European countries into backing what it said was an illegal idea to seize frozen Russian assets to help to finance the rebuilding of Ukraine. The RIA news agency reported on Thursday that Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was responding to a US media report which suggested that President Biden had, in principle, backed proposed US legislation to facilitate such a seizure. The Kremlin spokesman added that Europe will face inevitable legal consequences if it gives in to American pressure. The RIA also cited Mr. Peskov as saying that Moscow had not been informed of the developments. Finland will extend the closure of its border with Russia by 4 weeks until February the 11th, the Ministry of Interior has said, confirming earlier reports that all crossings would remain shut. Finland closed its border with Russia late last year in response to a growing inflow of asylum seekers, which it said was orchestrated by Moscow, a claim which the Kremlin denies. When 2 border crossings reopened briefly in December, more than 300 asylum seekers entered from Russia within 2 days, after which the country closed the entire border for another month. Japanese technology giant Fujitsu is in the crosshairs of British lawmakers for building the faulty accounting software that led to what has been called the country's biggest ever miscarriage of justice. Fujitsu created the Horizon IT system that resulted in some 700 local post office managers being wrongly convicted for theft and false accounting between 1999 and 2005. Amid mounting public anger, Britain is moving to quash convictions and to pay compensation after hundreds of self-employed sub-postmasters were wrongly convicted between 1999 and 2015. UK Postal Affairs Minister said in the Parliament that anybody who is shown to be responsible for this scandal should be held accountable. Well, Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency on Thursday, suspending government and police officials after 16 people were killed in rioting in the Pacific island nation. Prime Minister James Marape told a press conference that he'd suspended Papua New Guinea's chief of police and top bureaucrats in the finance and treasury departments, while the government conducts a review into the cause of the riots. A police and public sector protest on Wednesday over a pay cut that officials blamed on an administrative glitch descended into lawlessness. Well, television footage showed thousands of people in the streets of the capital, Port Moresby, many of them carrying what appeared to be looted merchandise as black smoke billowed over the city. The violence subsided after the army was deployed and police resumed duty.
Today we call for a state of emergency for 14 days in our nation's capital. There were recommendations for outside forces to come in or for us to seek help elsewhere.
Authorities in Ecuador have made over 300 arrests as the country remains under a state of emergency and curfew amid a dramatic surge in gang violence. Those arrested include a leader of the Los Lobos gang. Authorities say that dynamite was recovered from his house. President Daniel Noboa declared 22 criminal gangs as terrorist groups, making them official military targets. He also said that Ecuador was in a state of war with gangs who are holding more than 130 prison staff hostage. Well, amidst the wave of violence in Ecuador, its neighbouring country, Peru, has also put their guards up. Peruvian police have strengthened their operation on its bordering northwestern city of Tumbes. According to a Peruvian commander, 400 agents were deployed to the border, along with another 60 officers from Peru's Special Operations National Direction. More reinforcement is also expected. Well, that's all from me here in Washington. Back now to you, Tanvi, in the studio in New Delhi.
Thank you very much, Kate, for being with us. Kate Fisher joining us from Washington, D.C. Still to come on DD India Global. Global renewable energy capacity surges by 50%, led by the US, EU and India. Solar and wind energy hold the key to tackle climate change. And hundreds of hip-shaking and wig-wearing Elvis Presley fans began their annual pilgrimage to the Elvis Festival in Outback, Australia.
Experience the magic of Ayodhya, where spirituality meets architectural grandeur. Immerse yourself in the majestic beauty of the Ram Temple, an awe-inspiring symbol of devotion and cultural heritage. Explore its intricate details from the towering spires to the sacred sanctorum. Watch Ayodhya, the marvel of architecture, on Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. The International Energy Agency, IEA, released its Renewables 2023 report on Thursday. In this report, the IEA said that the world added 50% more renewable energy capacity in 2023 than in 2022, and the next 5 years will see fastest growth yet. But it also said that lack of financing for emerging and developing economies is the key issue. The report forecasts that solar power and onshore wind energy deployment through 2028 is expected to more than double in the United States, in the European Union, in India and in Brazil compared with the last 5 years. It's worth noting that though India is forecast to add 203 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity, while the 11 countries that make up the ASEAN are expected to boost this capacity by a combined 63 gigawatt. The researchers of the IEA found that prices for solar components in 2023 declined by almost 50% year-on-year. The report also said that in 2023, the role of biofuels has also come to the fore. Emerging economies led by Brazil and India are expected to drive 70% of global demand over the next 5 years as biofuels start to show their true potential. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh called on the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, at 10 Downing Street, London on Wednesday. The Indian Defence Minister highlighted that both the nations have made significant strides in moulding and recrafting the historic ties into a modern, multifaceted and mutually beneficial partnership under the direction of the leaders of both the countries. Rajnath Singh recalled the recent enhancement in bilateral defence engagement, spanning joint exercises, training capability, building increased interoperability, military-to-military ties, especially in the maritime domain. He emphasized that the ongoing efforts to enhance defence industrial cooperation, including in the technology domain, has also been significant. The Indian Defence Minister also met UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron. The leaders held insightful deliberations on boosting India-UK ties and deepening cooperation between the two countries. Back in India, the country's Army Chief, General Manoj Pandey, in an annual press briefing today said that the situation at the country's northern border is stable yet sensitive. He added that the Indian Army continues to operate with other agencies and state administration at its northern front. The Indian Army Chief, General Manoj Pandey, also said that we are committed to boost more infrastructure on our border areas.
As far as the situation on the northern borders goes, I would say the situation is stable yet sensitive. We continue to talk both at the military level as well as the diplomatic level as per the established protocols and procedures to find resolution to the balance issues which remain. Our operational preparedness in these areas continues to be of a very high level, and our deployment is both robust as well as balanced.
On to Gujarat now, where it was day 2 of the vibrant Gujarat Summit. Well, the Bangladesh Pavilion at the vibrant Gujarat Trade Show is showcasing high-tech parks of Bangladesh and also showcasing brand Bangladesh, made in Bangladesh. DD India correspondent Meghna Dev spoke to the Joint Secretary in Bangladesh's Ministry of Commerce.
We are here at the Bangladesh Pavilion at the vibrant Gujarat Global Trade Show, and we are joined by Mr. Azad, who is the Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce of Bangladesh. So thank you so much for talking to DD India. We see a lot of things on display at this pavilion. What is being showcased? What's your experience at the summit?
Oh, it's a great experience being here. You see, Bangladesh is always a partner country of India. We were here in G20 as well, though not a member of G20. I had been here twice. Our minister was here, our prime minister was here. So we take a special corner in our heart for India. So this is an opportunity to be here in Gujarat because it is the largest show in India, probably in terms of expo.
A lot of things on display, high-tech parks of Bangladesh, how Bangladesh Investment Development Authority and all these things are being showcased. What's the interest that you're gathering, the sense that you're picking up from here?
Actually, we are getting so many people interested in Bangladesh. They want to invest in Bangladesh, they want to export to Bangladesh, and also import some of the products like garments and other things. But recently Bangladesh, though our mainstay is garments, 84% is coming from export of garments industry. But we are coming up in terms of manufacturing pharmaceutical products, leather, and Bangladesh is one of the major countries which is coming up with its IT and ITES, IT-enabled services.
So here we had from the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Commerce of Bangladesh on what Bangladesh is showcasing here at the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit at the Trade Expo, which is being organized here with the summit. With camera person Lakshman Rajput, this is Meghna Dev for DD India from Gandhinagar.
Staying in Asia, Japan's Finance Minister Suzuki Shunichi has arrived at Colombo on a 2-day visit to Sri Lanka. He was received by Sri Lanka's State Minister of Defence, Premita Bandara Thenakun. The Japanese Finance Minister is scheduled to have official discussions with Sri Lanka's President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi and the accompanying delegation will visit the Parliament, Jayawardene Centre, Sri Jayawardene Pura Hospital, Colombo Dockyard and Lanka Nippon BizTech Institute in Maharagma during their stay in Sri Lanka. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Republican-led state of Texas spent over $100 million since April 2022 busing migrants who recently crossed the US-Mexico border to Democratic-led cities. These arrivals have strained resources and increased challenges for President Biden's re-election. Argentina has likely faced over 200% inflation last year, among the world's highest, hitting wallets hard as grocery costs surged in the country. In December, the inflation rate was around 28%, with food prices rising further post-devaluation of the peso currency. Moscow is facing a snowstorm with strong winds as residents navigated snow-covered streets after heavy equipment cleared pathways. Meteorologists expect up to 10% of monthly precipitation and minus 12 degrees Celsius temperatures there. Back to India, a transformative movement is gaining momentum, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra. It's the largest ever outreach initiative by India's government, and it is bringing the promise of empowerment and a brighter future to the doorstep of all Indians. In this series, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, the IEC van traversed across 4 panchayats in Poonch district in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. On this occasion, several beneficiaries shared their progressive stories under the campaign Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani. And next we take you to Sydney, Australia, where hundreds of Elvis Presley enthusiasts donning diamante-studded jumpsuits commenced their annual journey to the Elvis Festival in outback Australia today. At Sydney's Central Railway Terminal, they danced to the King's hits before boarding the Elvis Express to Park's Festival. The 6-hour train ride promises continuous Elvis-themed entertainment, including tribute to artists performing his top hits. So that's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram at DD India Live. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.